Just waiting for Reverend Graham Wray to arrive as we continue our trek and our voyage through Frank Vaughan's History of the Free Church of England. We're in the appendix section reading about church orders of presbyter equal bishop and deacon. I might say by way of introduction that the RECs and FCEs could have done much better by making that clear. But then the countercharge would be that you are you're Presbyterian, not Episcopalian. And yet they wanted to retain the historic episcopate, which was basically three orders. So they really didn't do themselves any favor by giving with the left hand what they took from the right hand. Give me a second, I will check. Graham Ray has now entered. We await for his arrival. Sometimes it takes a bit. Here he is. Good morning, Graham. Or good afternoon. Is it 4 o'clock where you are? I can't hear you. I don't know if you
I
can.
don't. Sorry, have you got me now?
I've got you now, yes.
Very good. It's just gone 4, Don. It's about 6 minutes past 4.
Oh, okay. So it's
So
5 hours. All right.
yeah.
So what's going on?
Is that a good time for you?
Oh, yeah. Do you want to do Wednesday alone or Wednesday and Thursday?
I should normally be able to do Wednesday and Thursday. I'm sorry about yesterday. We were a little bit overbooked, I'm afraid, and then I suddenly woke up to the fact that we had a date. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, let's try and go for that. Normally, Don, all being equal.
Okay.
And how are things with you?
Well, a dust up. I had a 2 hour radio interview with
Oh, yeah.
Chris Arnsen, the radio host of Iron Sharpens Iron. And the subject was,
Okay.
has Oxford theology lost the gospel of Christ? And that brought in the REC to quite an extent with their, for some, don't know how many, but for some, they're trekked into neo-Oxfordianism with transubstantiation, a vigorous assertion of the high episcopal office, baptismal justification, bread worship, and even with Shifty Sutton, the invocation of departed saints. So did that for 2 hours. The radio host is a Reformed Baptist, and it was a very good interview. And he was kind of shocked, calling me a theological encyclopedia. And he called it fascinating. And he put that out to thousands of Anglicans in a whole bunch of Facebook pages and Facebook groups. Well, there's a little boy up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He calls himself Father Ricky
Oh, yeah.
McCarl. He's been in the REC 5 years. Before that, he had a Baptist education in an independent fundamentalistic school. And then he took he took a few classes at Reformed Episcopal Seminary, and he's um, now in a tiny church west of Philadelphia. Part-time, I take it. He's a full-time mortician. Well, he listened to the video and then wrote uh, his review of it to the radio host. And the radio host sent that to me. So I'm in the process of rebutting the boy's defamations, ignorance, lies. And you should see some, in fact, I'll copy you that, you and Graham and Joe Busfield, exactly, the radio program URL, as well as the boys' defamations. And then I am in the process of writing a rebuttal to the defamation. So then I'm going to take all of that and send it to the boy's bishop. Well, the radio host, when he got that, he got back to Boy McCarl and said, "Are you willing to come on and debate all this with Don Veitch?" And just a couple of days ago, I got word back from the radio host that the boy's bishop said no. Now, that has to be said against the much greater backdrop, since I am extremely well known to all of the REC, FCE, and ACNA bishops, because when Shifty's Anglican Office Book came out, 250 pages out of 350 pages, 250 collects to Mary and all the saints that they could muster, or pro nobis. And so for one full year, Graham, I took those 250 collects, took a picture of them in the book, and then wrote a little tiny commentary on it. And for one full year, about 2 emails or 3 emails per week from me to all REC, all FCE, and all ACNA bishops. I sent it to all of the REC parishes in this nation. I sent it to 200 PCA parishes. I sent it to all the Reformed seminaries in the nation. I sent it to Vesta Sproul, wife of R.C. Sproul, whom I've known for 50 years, 45 years, going back to 1974. I sent it to Ligonier Ministry. I sent it to all the professors at Reformation Bible College. Again, 2 to 3 emails per week for 1 year, covering the 250 collects, and really a takedown of Sutton and his Anglican Office Book. I got word back from an insider that all of the bishops are afraid of me because number one, I'm a military man and I fight back. Number two, I'm educated. And three, I'm persistent like a dog, junkyard dog with a bone. They all know me 1 year, including Boy McCarl's bishop, who told him, stay away from Veitch. Because if I have done the debate with Boy McCarl, McCarl would have been a funeral service because he's ignorant. But much more importantly, I would have been taking down the REC. So I'm going to send my rebuttals to the bishop. He won't answer, of course. And so anyways, that's some of the recent dust up in the last couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks. And I'll send you a copy of the promo and the URL for the audio or for the radio program. You listen on computer. and I'll send you the boys' defamations, and I'll send you my rebuttals. And I'll keep you, Graham and Joe Busfield, up to date. So if we are to stand back and just give a PowerPoint, 3, 4, 5 points on Fenwick and the FCE, here's what I would my takeaway. Number one, he was an ecumenist who wanted to have old Catholics and Orthodox be in the FCE as well as Anglo-Catholics. 2, he does away with the Declaration of Principles. Number 3, he insinuated himself very slowly and carefully in order to infiltrate and destroy the FCE. And he was successful at that. That's my kind of executive summary on the FCE. And the same is true for Shifty Sutton. He was an infiltrator and a liar and dishonest.
Yeah, well, on our side, Don, we're following with interest what's happening with Exeter rather, and Stephan Hannah. As you know, they're busy battling it out in court as to whether or not Stephen is allowed to call himself a Free Church of England minister. So it's going to be quite a landmark decision that whatever the court rules will presumably, to some extent, apply to identify who are the Free Church of England congregations and who are not. Because if the court decides that the bishops can dismiss ministers who are purporting to run services for the denomination, if bishops are allowed to say yay or nay to that, then the denomination actually is constituted with only those congregations. So it's a little bit of a sort of a dictatorial hierarchy, that is, to say, well, you're a member, you're not, you're a member, you're not, and sort of sift us out like that, just at their own whim and fancy, without any recourse to convocation or the ministers themselves or the congregations those ministers are serving. If that is their decision, if that's the decision of the court, then well, we'll have to decide what we're going to do from then on. And Stephen, of course, will have to decide as well. But what's happened up to now, and what is sort of become the default reaction, is that congregations are just virtually becoming independent non-conformist chapels, self-governing, propagating, and just determining their own agenda, really, with very little reference to any centralized body, let alone bishops or convocations or anything like that. But if the bishops want to run the denomination in that fashion, then it's almost the death knell of the denomination, because convocation falls away. Convocation has no authority whatsoever. The bishops have all the authority, and the Free Church of England, as we came to know it in our and be attracted to it when we joined, no longer exists. It's a denomination in name only. There's no adherence to the procedures and the representation or the recognition of who's legitimate and who's not left. We're all just deciding, like the Book of Acts, we're all just doing what is right in our own eyes and defining the denomination as we see fit. So it's all very disillusioning. I mean, even the complication we try to have with the view in the connection didn't really have any authority at all. We managed to meet together for one day. Didn't get through very much business really, and tried to meet a second day. It was a very hurried meeting. People had lots of other more important things on their agenda, and the third day just never happened. We set apart as chairman calling that gathering. We set apart 3 days to try and get through what we had to get through online, and we lasted about one session of that, a little bit of the session the next day, and that was it. So I think we're almost becoming almost like the FCE. You're familiar with the FCE here in the UK?
I've heard of it,
Independent
but I don't know much about it. What is it? Is it Anglican?
It's broader than the Anglican Church. It was actually started by Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones when he and John Stott more or less agreed to go their different ways. I think it was at a meeting of the Evangelical Council, something to that effect. At the height of his ministry and John Stott's ministry. And there was a big debate down at the Evangelical Council meeting. And the issue was, is the Church of England and similar denominations which have kind of gone against their own declaration of principles and constitution, are they able to still function as in other words, the ecumenical movement? What they're really referring to was the ecumenical movement. Is there any value in remaining together as a denomination when that denomination has actually lost its faith in its own declaration of principles, etc., etc.? And the conclusion Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones came to was that there's no point whatsoever in remaining in a denomination that whose leadership don't actually believe what they're supposed to believe any longer. In other words, the denomination has actually lost its way, really, which exactly describes the Church of England and now sadly the Free Church of England as well.
I'm reading Jim Packer's The 39 Articles, and he's arguing big time that they need to come back to subscribe and theologize around the 39 Articles. But then he also takes notice of how basically they've been consigned to the attic or consigned somewhere. They don't control theology.
No.
Even here in the United States, the ACNA, there's only one diocese that requires subscription, and the rest of the denomination does not. And in fact, that's one of the points that Boy McCarl says, that I've never been an Anglican. And, I was a Reformed Episcopalian for 25 years. And he says Veitch never subscribed to the 39 Articles. Well, in fact, I did, the American version of them. But I never gave up my Westminster Confession like Shifty Sutton did. So I'm going to address his ignorance. I really wish we had had the debate. It would have been an execution and a funeral. politely
Well,
done.
the thing is, at the end of the day, as when we first started meeting, that was the big question was, to what extent are our efforts to reclaim the denomination that we've sort of grown up in and had allegiance to all these years, to what extent are we able to influence those who now are in leadership to return to their founding principles? And we more or less came to a conclusion, I think, and time has shown this to be surely the case, that these guys aren't interested really in what the denomination is on paper. They're only interested in what they can make of it, and what will further their interests in the denomination, their hold over the denomination, and we just ignore them now. I mean, we just carry on and do our local work. We encourage like-minded churches. We work together with them. And certainly we will be following Stephan Hannah's progress with great interest. But it's likely, what's likely to happen is that Stephan Hannah will, like Arthur Kay and the Farnham folk and Dominic Stockford and these guys, they'll probably just go off and do their own thing. They'll just establish a Reformed evangelical Anglican type places of worship, and the denomination will just grind to a halt and fizzle out, really. I mean, eventually, these bishops will realize that we're just not going to listen to them, we're not going to submit to them. And if they want to say we don't belong anymore, well, fine, that's their decision. But we're not going to stop our work, and we're not going to stop doing it in the buildings that we've been working in all these years,
Yeah.
So the denomination will just sort of peter out, really. I mean, they're running out of money very rapidly. They're running out of congregations here in the north very rapidly. So they can't really pull themselves to the denomination anymore. I don't know whether that's happening in the States, where these apostate bishops have tried to maintain the denomination. Is that denomination still viable? Do they still have congregations?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, I'm wondering to what extent ACNA really has viable congregations.
They have
in the denomination.
they have about 100,000 people.
Right. So
Uh,
that's still viable and that can still function. But here in England, the Free Church of England, I mean, I don't have the statistics, but from what I can gather, all the churches that Finnick has tried to keep going have all fizzled out. Have you heard anything more from Arthur as to what's happening to Tottington?
from who?
From Arthur Kay.
I haven't talked to
he
him since
reported?
a month ago, maybe. They're
Okay.
still going, and there is now a young man who's taken over, and Arthur still goes there, but he's not as active as before. And it was a young man that Arthur had kind of tutored and discipled, and so I forget his name, but
That's not in the building that he was serving in when he was in the Free Church of England. Hey, that's another locality altogether, that congregation,
yeah,
under that young man. But then rumor had it was that I think Arthur reported to you right at the beginning that the Fenwick put a man into the Tottington Church building. I mean, he met for a couple of Sundays and no one turned up, so he eventually packed it in. But as far as I know, that's still the case, is it not?
Think they're renting it out for dances and wedding
Yeah,
ceremonies, and
yeah.
I think I heard they even rented it out to some kind of Satan
Reiki
worship,
group. Or something.
yeah, or something.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
he's
I believe they tried to remedy that situation. What's his name? Perth said he would deal with that. He wouldn't allow that to happen. But very well to not allow that to happen. But has a gospel work sprung up in its place? That's the question we've got to ask.
Fenwick's legacy is very simply summarized by he destroyed ministries and churches. He
Yeah,
can't claim anything else. He's a failure, the failed Fenwick. Now he would
yeah. Well,
sociopath.
his henchmen that have taken over are probably like us, waiting to see what's going to happen to Exeter. That's probably the lull before the storm at the moment.
Yeah,
But as I say, I'm not in any way intimidated by that, because we're just carrying on with our work here, and we're hunkering down and getting on with the business. We're not going to sit and wait for them to tell us we can do the Lord's work. We don't need their permission to use the building as we have done for the last, since 1949, really, when we joined the Free Church of England. The only reason we joined the Free Church of England was because it was a gospel church, and preaching the gospel and reaching people for Christ. So we'll just carry on doing that with or without the Free Church of England. They don't give us permission to do the Lord's work. Anyway, what are we doing about our study? Do we want to continue that, Don, or
yeah,
move on from that?
yeah. I'll pull it up and we'll continue onwards.
I think we should. It's quite a good section, actually, concerning our leadership was established in the original Free Church of England. As I say, it's all a little bit of an historic relic now, rather than describing the present situation. We've moved so far from this; it's almost non-recognizable at all.
Do you want to keep reading it or not?
Well, it's up to you there, Don. If you think it's going to be of help to people, my personal benefit is that it makes me realize just how far we are from what was originally started by the Free Church of England men. It's just
I have
to me the fact that
I've gone back and I'm reading Walter Walsh's Secret History of the Oxford Movement. And it details all of the equivocations, the shifts and redefinitions, and the way the Oxfordians got into the Church of England. Early on, they were using deceitful clauses and doublespeak, and they were hiding their agenda. And early on, many saw where the Oxfordianism was going, although it was only in the germinal and beginning stages. And they were beginning, the evangelicals or the articles men were beginning to predict that this was going to move towards the Council of Trent on doctrine. And then over
Yeah.
the years, that's exactly what happened as it matured and became more openly known. Now, see, Walter Walsh writes it towards the end of the 19th century when the emergence had happened. And he goes back and he does a very close historical analysis of the gamemanship played by these antichrists. That's what I call Oxfordians. Antichrists, Roman antichrists, Romanizers. Now, I know if failed Fanick is listening to this, he doesn't care about the doctrine involved. He doesn't. Doesn't, he can discuss it, but he doesn't have convictions on it, or he would have never, ever allowed Calvin Robinson into the FCE. Having said that, what it tells you and me today in 2026 is that these article Anglicans, these evangelicals, cared about doctrine, cared about the Word of God, loved the Word of God, exalted the Word of God. And when they saw the Antichrist coming, they began to put up defenses. And one of the big defenses and great benefits that arose in 18, I want to say 1854-ish, was the production of the 55-volume series called the Parker Society series. 55 volumes where they said, oh, here come the Antichrist, the Oxfordians. Let's go back to the English Reformation and gather up all of the writings of our beloved reformers. And, if you got a minute here, you'll let me just go through some of these quickly. Graham, John Bale, Cranmer, Thomas Beacon, John Bradford, Henry Bull, Bullinger, James Cahill, Thomas Cooper, Miles Coverdale, who was Bishop of Exeter in my ancestral hometown back to 1606. William Grindal, John Hooper, Roger Hutchinson, John Jewell, Latimer, Alexander Noel, Matthew Parker, James Pilkington, Nicholas Ridley, Thomas Rogers, Ed Sandys, Tyndall, Whitgift, Whitaker, the Zurich letters showing letters between the Swiss churches and Canterbury, Philpott, John Cheek, and then there's others. 55 volumes available today at reformedbooksonline.com. That was one of the tremendous responses of these Bible men who also included FCE men, because FCE was a response to the anti-Christian tractators, the anti-Christian Oxfordians, which means nothing to Homo Boy Firth in York, means nothing to this Gredison guy. By the way, I have restarted a retour of those 55 volumes. I'm on volume 1, going to take me a long time, but I'm reading William Tyndale. Volume 1 has Tyndale, John Frith, who was burned at the stake, Patrick Hamilton, who was a Scottish reformer, Lutheran, and then Robert Barnes, who was also he in fact in 1524 December Eve service, 24th Christmas Eve service, 1524. Cranmer is in Cambridge, and the very famous sermon given at St. Margaret's in Cambridge It was a barn burner in behalf of Lutheran theology, such that word got back to London that as a result, they sent uh, sheriffs with warrants to uh, go to all the various houses where books may have been stored that were Lutheran. And Barnes was required to appear in London. Somehow, some way, he got off the hook. Ultimately, that's 1524 now. And the White Horse Inn is meeting in Cambridge. I don't think Cranmer was involved in that, but I guarantee you that Cranmer knew of that famous sermon at St. Margaret's. The place was packed, and everybody knew who Robert Barnes was. He was the extrovert, and one of the scholars on the English Reformation said he was really the ringleader in Cambridge. He'd formerly been an Augustinian monk and then had heard of the stuff going on in Germany. He went to Germany. He met with Luther, studied with Luther, got his doctorate from Wittenberg, came back to England. So my point being here is that there were some extremely good things that came out of the Oxford movement. So Walter Walsh, Secret History of the Oxford Movement. You can get that online at Amazon.com. The 55-volume Parker Society series at reformbooksonline.com. And then thirdly, I've started reading Reverend William Good's 2-volume, The Divine Rule and Faith. That too was a response to the Antichrists of Oxford, in which he takes on apostolic succession, the Eucharist discussion, and then the supremacy of Scripture as per Article 6. And all of those things gloriously today are still worth asserting and defending. Sola Scriptura. So a lot of good came out of that. It's a forgotten history. So I'm beginning to review the documents of the mid-19th century. Also reading the very poorly written lecture series by Johnny Boy Newman, John Henry Newman. Pathetic, Graham, confusing, equivocating. He doesn't want justification by faith only. Secondly, I'm reading the collected works of John Henry Newman. I call him Johnny Boy, the Antichrist. Those things are still, that's what gave the jump start to the Free Church of England, which was before the REC even came to life in 1873.
So, in terms of the situation denominationally in the States there, do you find that the evangelicals are trying to form themselves together in some sort of denominational structure, or are they just doing their own thing?
Are you talking about the ACNA?
Well, people like Ryan and your friend up there in what's his name?
Joe Busfield?
He's got that ministry of tutoring. He's catechizing youngsters and stuff like that. Those guys are they more or less declared independence from their denominations, or what are they doing?
Yeah, Ryan Underwood is in a Anglo-Catholic church that hired him, but they got burned by 2 or 3 archbishops in the continuing Anglican community. And so they've pulled back from a couple of denominations. They have a beautiful building, and Ryan is there not compromising, but they're using the 1928 prayer book, which has got a few problems in it. But he wants me to come down and speak at his church, but I hesitate because it's a 7-hour drive, and I'm tight on money. I'm a retiree. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm living a modest modest comfort. But 7-hour drive, and then I'm not sure if I got to get a hotel, I got to pay for gas. So I think I'm going to write him and say, yes, I'll come. Do you have a place where I can sleep? And I need about $120 for gas, and I'll be willing to come. And if I do go, I'm going to speak on sola scriptura from the biblical perspective, from Moses to Revelation, and try to bring it together, showing that sola scriptura is still premier. It is the view of the Catholic Church, and I don't mean Antichrist Church. I mean the universal church. And for example, the New Testament, if we didn't have the New Testament manuscripts, 5,487 Greek manuscripts, we could reconstruct the New Testament from the church fathers of the first 300 years, minus 4 verses. All of the verses of the New Testament could be put together. We have a New Testament just from these sola scriptura men. I was just reading Basil the Great yesterday, and he said we don't follow the fathers or tradition unless the fathers and tradition follow the scriptures.
Yeah.
So
scripture's the authority.
Yeah. And in fact, my pastor, I'm in an ARP church, Associate Reformed Presbyterian, very comfortable there. And he's preached through Acts 20, where Paul calls the Ephesian elders, plural, to meet him at Miletus. And he gives them that rather sad but helpful sermon to them. And he says, God has appointed you as bishops, overseers, plural. Bishops were presbyters. And he made that note in the sermon. And that's where I think the RECs, I think they could have cleaned it up and addressed the ordinal, and instead of calling him bishop, call him the senior presbyter. Bishops, or have some explanatory note more clearly defining that. Because what happened with the REC is that a couple of the bishops began pressing the supremacy of the bishop. If you disagreed with him, he said, shut up, sit down, obey the bishop. The bishop hath spoken. That was used, and I kept hearing that, though I was distant from it. And I didn't understand that imperious, autocratic, authoritarian, imperialistic flavor. I had come through with Bishop Herder, who never had to say that. You followed him because he was so godly and so biblical. I'm telling you, Graham, he was a walking Bible. If you asked him what time class was the next day, he'd tell you, and then he'd quote a Bible verse, redeem the time. or if you asked him what the weather was like outside, he'd tell you what it was, and then quote, God made the heavens, the earth, and the clouds, and the rain, and this. He had a Bible verse for everything, and I think he really studied to be that kind of man for his students. And he had a very thriving church.
Yeah.
I remember one of the more elderly gentlemen who was a member went to Bishop Herder's church, which he had before he was at the seminary, and he said, we came because this guy knew the Bible. He did. And he was godly, and he was humble. But before the perversions of the 1990s and onwards, that element was lost. We had an arrogant bishops like failure Fedek. So I think that's a good
Yeah, well,
point.
I think
No?
I think the rift between what the Free Church Union was and RDC was, and those few congregations now left in those denominations that are still true to their founding principles, that rift is so vast now that the guys haven't really got the will or the motivation to actually try and get rid of those who've basically hijacked the denomination. They're just sort of letting them get on with their own demise, really.
Yeah.
In order to free us to, not be influenced by them, not to be hindered by them, but also to get on with our work and not be caught up in always argy-bargy with bishops and their view of what the church is supposed to be. There's a certain amount of nervous energy involved and time and effort that is just better spent building our churches. That's the place I'm reaching now, really, with the Free Church England. So especially if this case with Stephan Hannah goes the wrong way, I'm just washing my hands of the whole denomination and just hunkering down, getting on with the work in my own little patch, as it were. And I think I'm speaking for my colleagues as well in the Evangelical Connection. I think I'm speaking for Tony. He's overseas. He's back home in South Africa at the moment, but he's just getting on with the work, And likewise, Virgil Dantas in Fleetwood. And we just haven't got the time really to worry, or the nervous energy really to be locking swords with men who've so obviously turned their back on their own denomination, really. So I think that's where I'd like to go. I think, John, rather than engaging with these men and constantly arguing with them, just let them get on with it. And one day they're going to have to answer to the Lord, and He'll sort them out. we don't have to free us to get on with the work and not have all this nervous energy wasted on arguing with bishops who ought to know better, really. I mean, you can't tell me the Fenwick doesn't know in his heart of hearts that he's totally and utterly chalk and cheese compared with the founding fathers of the Free Church of England. He knows jolly well that he's not in their camp at all. He's made that very obvious, hasn't he? So let him get on with it, Don. That's my advice, rather than spending all this time of nervous energy debating with these guys, because they're not converted. As far as we can judge, they're not converted, and we have to just pray for them, of course, and as we have opportunity on a personal level, we can witness to them. But in terms of running our churches and trying to get them on sites to help us run our churches, forget it.
Yeah.
They've long since ditched that idea. So in terms of our meeting, Don, that's more or less how I'm feeling at the moment. I appreciate the work you're doing. I appreciate the stand you're taking, but I don't think we're going to influence these people short of them being converted and the Lord opening their eyes. So let's pray for them. Let's witness them as and when we have opportunity. But to be constantly engaging with them in this attempt to convince them that they're right and they're wrong and we're right. I don't think we're going to get very far with them at all.
Well, I just reread the article, 4 or 5 page article that I wrote for Ann Jordan's recent 2025 history of the Free Church of England. I read it in connection with the dust up with Boy McCarl. And my closing paragraph is what you do with heretics and apostates. You examine, you make a determination, you silence them, you warn them. After a second or third admonition, you turn away from them. You don't bid them farewell. You don't bring them into your home. You basically kick them out. So guys like Shifty or Failed Fennec, they're gone. I'm not arguing.
Yeah.
And that said, I go back to my pastor's sermon of Paul with the Ephesian elders, Ephesian bishops. He said, mark you well, there's going to be men who arise from within that will trouble you. And Paul says, take heed to yourself and to your flock over which you've been bishops. And so we need to take heed to the people around us and protect them from the ravenous and liars.
Yeah.
And then kick them out.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, as a pastor, you are responsible for your flock, aren't you? You're not responsible for the denomination. You're responsible for your own people that God has given into your hands to care for them and pray for them and teach them and encourage them. That's a full time. That's a lifetime's work in and of itself. We don't need to be rampaging against. I mean, it's like on a more obviously fruitless endeavor. It's like us objecting to this consecration of the new Archbishop of Canterbury. I mean, what chance do we have of influencing that?
Yeah.
In any shape or form? We have no chance. Nobody's going to listen to us about that. As much as we are concerned about who it is they've chosen and why they've chosen her and all the rest of it. And we can spend our lives wasting our time and energy campaigning against her appointment, but at the expense of reaching out to our own community. And I think more and more people are looking for that reality in their own local churches. They're not that bothered about denominationalism at all. So I think in terms of us meeting, Don, let's keep in touch for sure. Let's be praying for one another. But as far as the demonstrating with the denomination, the Free Church of England, or trying to champion its cause, I think it's a bit of a fruitless exercise, quite honestly. And I'm sure you've come to the same conclusion with your REC fellows. I mean, they're not going to listen to, short of a miracle, they're not going to listen to our protestations. So let them get on with it. That's the position I'm coming to. But would like to keep in touch with you and with Ryan and Joe and all these guys as when we have opportunity to do so. I don't say we don't achieve anything by championing the evangelical reform point of view. Obviously, we must maintain that, but most especially amongst our own congregations, which is what you're really doing, isn't it? I mean, you've given up on the REC a long time ago, and hence you've joined another denomination already, haven't you?
Well, I'm still a prayer book man. I use
Yeah,
it every day.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
wonderful.
We still we still value it, but sadly, it's not um, it's not being promoted or used or appreciated by those who were supposed to be serving with, or were serving with. So even that is even our liturgy now is no longer really defining who we are. We're not defined by our liturgy anymore, are we?
Yeah. And I'm
Mm,
still using the Westminster Standards. I think it is the ripest of the Reformed confessions and still embrace
yeah,
the 39 articles, the American version.
yeah. It's really an amplification of the 39 articles, isn't it?
Yeah, and it really is a continuing witness of the burning fire in those men to be biblical men. And
Yeah,
it's to be reminded that there were 121 men at the Westminster Assembly meeting in the Jerusalem chamber that met for 3 or 4 years. And these 121 men were prayer book men. They had two or three Scotsmen in there, um, Gillespie, I think, and another guy or two, Rutherford. But they were all prayer book people raised on the 1559 prayer book of Elizabeth. And so they were
yeah.
they were burning lights, shining lights, determined lights.
Mm,
And the very important point that is made in the Westminster Confession is that of the illumination of the Holy Spirit on the pages, and that burns in the souls of these men. And I don't think there's been a clearer statement church-wise since then, and that sustained the Presbyterians in the Scotland and in America for centuries. Uh, and still, whether you like it or don't like it, you can't disagree that they were trying to be biblical. And I think that's a
yeah,
witness that shines to us today. Still, that we would burn with the light. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. He said, let your light so shine that men may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. There is a desperate need for prayer, for the light of the world, Jesus, to illumine us with that holy fire, to exposit the word, and as Luther said, in the bondage of the will, to preach to every creature. Throw off this little boy, a failed Fenwick and Shifty Sutton in his drapes, always trying to bring focus on themselves and their power. No, no, no. It's about the triune God.
yeah. I was listening to a blog, one of these uh, like we're doing now, really, I suppose. He's interviewing one of Tomlin. Do you remember Chris Tomlin, the a fairly modern musician in the um, in writing Christian worship music and so on. And he was talking about how he was almost rebuked by the Lord for writing his music. He sensed that he was writing his music for the sake of his own fame and influence in Christian circles and so on. And he was listening to this. He happened to be listening to the sermon. He was traveling somewhere, I think. He was listening to the sermon, and the guy was talking about. The preacher was talking about David being chosen as king of Israel, and how Samuel gets to the point where he says to Jesse, is this it now? Have we gone through all your sons? Have you got any more sons? And he says, yes, I've got one more son, but he's just a shepherd boy out there looking after sheep. And of course, the Lord says to Samuel, that's the man, he's a man after my own heart. I want him. And the point this musician was making was that God's more interested in people who are caring for the sheep than he is in people who are interested in parading their own importance before the prophets to be made some sort of ruler or leader in the church. The way he put it was that God's interested in people who are concerned for the sheep, not parading in the selection committee sort of thing for their own ends. And I thought that was quite a sobering lesson to those in leadership. Are we aspiring to leadership so that we can care for sheep, or are we aspiring for leadership so that we can put ourselves in the limelight?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Well,
Well,
are you ready to get ready next Wednesday? I'm getting ready to send out the URLs for Wednesday and Thursday.
Well, I'm thinking, Don, that we've just come to the end of, I think, Vaughan's appendix on leadership in the church, haven't we? The next one, just looking ahead, seems to be more to do with bishops in the Free Church of England, which is more to do with them trying to establish themselves in Anglican eyes as a legitimate denomination and so on. So I'm not too keen to be bothered with that. And then we've pretty well done the next section, which is Romanizing Germans. I think we've done that, haven't we? Pretty much. We looked at some of the differences between the 1662 and the Free Church of England prayer book. Are you happy we've done that?
Here's where we left off in Vaughan. We didn't quite finish it. We're in the appendices, and I'm bringing it up before you, Appendix 2. This is page 151 out of 193 pages. So I don't know if you want to finish the book or move on to something else.
Yeah, I think we'll leave Vaughan at that point, because this next section, this next appendix, has to do more with the Free Church of England trying to establish its authenticity in the eyes of Anglicans. The idea of our bishops always having been duly identified with the apostolic succession, so to speak, of bishops. I'm not that concerned about that, really. I don't think our bishops have to prove that they've been duly consecrated by another bishop in order to be authentic. It's more to do with high church stuff. That.
Yeah,
I would suggest we leave Vaughan at this point, unless I've missed something.
Yeah, I'm just thumbing through Appendix 3, Romanizing Germs in the prayer book. Wow.
Yeah, I've pretty well covered that in terms of the study that I've done with Mariano. We went into that in quite great detail. It's more to do with the liturgy of the Free Church of England compared to the established church, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, what do you want to pick up next?
Well, what I'm suggesting, Don, is that maybe we keep in touch in terms of finding out what how we're progressing with our local churches and the efforts that we're making. Certainly, I think we should consult with one another with regard to Stephan Hannah and that sort of thing. But in terms of doing a study with you at the moment, I'm thinking we're just at a junction in our little church where we've got this alliance with these Reformed Baptist guys, and that's taking up quite a lot of time and effort and energy. So there's not a lot of time really to engage with another study just at the moment. So I think perhaps we'll leave it for a bit, Don, but be in touch when we've got some feedback from, say for example, this thing with Stephan Hannah. I think we should consult on that if we can, and see if there's anything more we can do to encourage him. But other than that, give it a break for a bit, I think, Don.
Okay, so you're saying we'll take a break for a while and not do Wednesday, Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
But certainly keep in touch, Don. Don't let's lose touch with each other.
Yeah.
But okay. we won't embark on another study just at the moment, whilst we're in this stage of our working together with these Reformed Baptist guys. You know, we're putting our time and energy into developing that development in the church.
Okay.
So give us a bit of space to give our time and attention and energy to that, and then but by all means be in touch, Don, if
Yep.
there are developments on your side. If Ryan wants to make contact, and maybe the South Americans as well, I think we must all keep in touch with each other, but devote ourselves to what's going on in our own churches for the time being.
Sounds good. Well, listen, I need to get running. I need to get running, Graham.
Great stuff, Don. Thanks for the contact, and Lord bless.
Yep, bye.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.